People are here. Hi, everyone. Home today. Back at our usual time. Shafiq is here. Merry Christmas, DJ. Merry Christmas, Carol in Texas. I see Kathleen. Hi. Stacy in Indiana. Merry Christmas to you. June in Canada. Claudette, Merry Christmas. Joss in Hawaii. Looking comfy. Yes, Gloria. I'm at home. Can't get more comfortable than home, right? Kay, Loretta. Hi, Loretta. Near Nashville. Jane in Memphis. Merry Christmas, Andy. Nice background. Thanks, Sharon. It's our tree. Hi, Susan. Thanks. Merry Christmas to you, Alex, Richard, Mexico, Cincinnati, Scotland. Oh, I'd love to be in Scotland right now. Leela in Arkansas. Good to see everyone. So this is, hi Shelly, Merry Christmas. Nice sweater. It's just a shirt, but thank you. It's wool. It's a good travel shirt. Marianne, Merry Christmas. Iran, wow. Nice. Nebraska. More Tennessee. All right, so we can start now. Always got to mess with my hair. So Eileen in Pennsylvania. I'm at home. So I explained last week that we were having a Christmas lockdown here in Italy. And I've gone over all the details. So if you want to know about that, you can scroll through and you'll see other lives where I talk about that. But we have a few days where it's like a strict lockdown and it's just preventative. Like there's not a big outbreak or anything. It's just they didn't want a bunch of people gathering at Christmas. So the red days, those are the severe lockdown days where we can only go out for grocery stores, pharmacies, and church. Those were the first 3 days. Christmas Eve, then Christmas Day, the day after Christmas. 4 days. And now we are in our orange days, which means most things are open as normal. And so we can go out, we can go far from home. We don't have to carry a form with us. So the red days, if we're going to the grocery store or something, we have to print out a form with our name on it, where we live, where we're going. It's very invasive, I guess. It's kind of, a lot of people say it's like communism or something. But it's just so that they can make sure people aren't going too far from where they're supposed to be. But on the orange days, which is what we're having now, we can go all over our region, so Rome, without the paper. And restaurants are open, but only for takeout. And not all of them reopened, because some of them don't think it's worth it. So a lot of them just stayed closed, but they are open. But the thing is that everything has to stop by 6 p.m. So now it's 7 p.m. here in Rome, and that's why I'm coming to you from my living room, because we can't go to bars right now. Anyway, bars are closed. You can't go to coffee shops, get coffee to go and walk around with it, but you can't walk around with whiskey, which is what I'm having tonight. So for the next couple weeks, it'll be Tipsy Tuesday from home, back at the normal time of 7 o'clock. And then once, starting on January 7th, I think, right after Epiphany, we go back to our normal-ish, whatever that is. But restaurants still have to stop serving at 6 p.m. So I'll move Tipsy Tuesday back to 5 probably, so I can do it in bars. So Tipsy Tuesday from home. I'm drinking whiskey, Bullet, bourbon. It was a Christmas present. And these are new glasses too. So made in Italy. Nice drinking glasses, I think. So, what was I going to talk about today? So today we went out. Now, yesterday was our first orange day. The day before that was a red day, and it was beautiful, like mid-60s maybe, and perfectly blue skies. Gorgeous day. But we could only go out for exercise, mass, grocery shopping, all that. And then yesterday was our first orange day, and it was pouring, like huge downpour. So that was perfect for our day that we were allowed to go out. But then today, another orange day, it was again, it started a little rainy, but it got beautiful. And so we went out. And if you saw my post on Facebook and Instagram, we went to my favorite places in Rome. So we went to, John in Kentucky, Merry Christmas. We went to Santa Croce in Gerusalemme. On the way there, we took the metro there. It's about 3 miles from home. But when we got off the metro, there's one of my favorite cafes is over there. It's called Foodie. And so cafes can serve people, but you can't drink it inside. You can only drink outside. And so they're serving in to-go cups. And so styrofoam cups, not the best way to drink coffee, especially here in Italy, but do what you have to do. And so we got a little styrofoam cappuccino. We went right outside with 20 other people who were having coffee. We all kind of gathered around and had our coffee there instead of inside. That's why that's kind of silly. Then we went to Santa Croce in Gerusalemme, which has the relics of the Passion. So this church, I've talked about it on here before. I've talked about it on a podcast. I've posted about it a lot. If you've ever traveled with me, I've taken you there. But this is the church that was where Queen Helena lived. So she was Constantine's mother, first emperor. He was the emperor that legalized Christianity. And so she traveled to Jerusalem when she was in her 80s and brought a bunch of things to Rome with her, including the true cross, the crown of thorns, part of the titulus, that's the title that hung above the cross. Actually, she didn't bring that back. It was given later. The nails of the crucifixion, and she brought a bunch of dirt from the Holy Land, and that's where she built her home. And so now there's a church built over that spot called Santa Croce in Gerusalemme, and it's a church that's always empty, but it's a part of not only my group pilgrimages, but also my day pilgrimages. And so in normal times, I am there usually like twice a day, 5 or 6 days a week. But it was only my second time there since, I guess, March. That was my last day tour. Then when the lockdown first ended back in, I think it was May, that was one of the first places I went. And then really for no reason at all, I have not been back since. So it was really nice to go there today. And they have a beautiful nativity. I'll share pictures of that later. But it's usually inside. Now they have it outside, I guess. I don't know why. Because the church is open. So the nativity's outside. It's very beautiful. There's a drunk guy in it. There's always a drunk guy. Almost always a drunk guy in nativities in Rome. We talk about that on a podcast too, because Christ was born into like the world. He wasn't born into like some fancy place. And in the world, there's drunk people. You can listen to that podcast on iTunes. Anyway, there's always a drunk guy. So this one has its drunk guy, has beautiful villages. And then inside the church, it was as empty as it always is. So in normal times, it's empty. In quarantine times, it's empty. In lockdown times, it's empty. I don't know why it's always empty. I know priests that studied in Rome that never went to see the relics of the Passion. Really sad. So a lot of tour groups, they don't go there. They'll go to St. John Lateran down the street, but they don't go the extra couple blocks to Santa Croce. So we went to Santa Croce. We were probably there for 45 minutes maybe. A couple people came in, but it was really nice to be back and to be back without people. Because usually I'm with people and we're kind of on a schedule. And so I was just able to spend time in front of the relics of the Passion. But there they have 4 pieces of the true cross. They have 1 of the nails from the crucifixion. They have 2 of the thorns from the crown of thorns. So a lot of people know that the crown of thorns is located in, it was stored in Notre Dame. I don't know where it is now, maybe Sainte-Chapelle or something. Sainte-Chapelle was actually built to hold the crown of thorns, but usually it's kept in Notre Dame. But it's only kind of the outer part or the inner part of the crown. All the thorns have been broken off and shipped to different churches around the world. And so 2 of those are at Santa Croce. And then they have the titulus, so that's the title that hung above the cross. You can actually see where it says Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, or part of that anyway. And they have the good thief's cross, so the thief that was crucified beside Jesus but said that he wanted to be with Jesus. And anyway, they have the crossbeam hanging on the wall there. And they also have some fragments of land from the Holy Land, so they have part of the cave from Bethlehem, and they have part of the Holy Sepulchre, part of the rock from that. And they have the finger of doubting Thomas. That's the finger that would have gone into the side, the wounds of Christ. And so it's just amazing that there's never anybody there. But it was really nice to be back and have some time alone in front of those relics. And they also have the Venerable Antonetta Mio. So this was a little girl who developed bone cancer at a very young age. And she was a parishioner of this church, Santa Croce. And this was in the 1900s, so it wasn't that long ago. But while she was suffering with this cancer, she still wanted to go to daily mass. And so she would always write a letter to Jesus or Mary, bring it to the church and leave it at the altar. At one point, she lost her leg to the cancer, and she thanked Christ for taking her leg because she knew that it would save souls if they saw this little girl without her leg. But she died before she was 7. She's now buried in this church, and they have some of her toys and some of her clothes. So it's a very powerful place to take people. And there's a neat little story that I heard from the sacristan there, and that is that they claim that on some nights they will actually hear her like playing with her toys that's in there, and it freaks them out. And so none of the sacristans like to be there alone at night. So when they close down, usually there's 2 people there and they leave quickly. But yeah, so they're working on her canonization. And if and when she's canonized, the little girl's name is Antonetta Mio. If and when she's canonized, she'll be the youngest person who is a saint that's not a martyr. So just 6 years old. So we got to visit her, and I love her. So it was nice to see her again. And then left the church, and we walked over to, where do we go next? St. John Lateran. So again, if you've listened to my podcast or seen some of my posts, it's not my favorite church in Rome. A lot of people love the cathedral. The history is great because it was the first legal church in the world, the first legal Christian church in the world. That's where Constantine built the church after legalizing Christianity. And it's just inside the walls of Rome. So it wasn't like he built a church in the center of the city, kind of gave the Christians a little piece of land on the outskirts of town. So it's very important historically. But as far as churches go, it's not my favorite to visit. But since we were over there, we visited. And in that church, they have a couple really cool relics. They have the heads of St. Peter and St. Paul. So St. Peter, he's buried at St. Peter's Basilica. St. Paul is buried at St. Paul outside the walls. But their heads are at the cathedral above the main altar. You can't actually see them. You can see the reliquary where they're located, but you can't see the heads. And they also have the relic of the table of the Last Supper. And so that's a big relic. It's pretty high up, so you can't get too close to it, but it's a big chunk of the wood from the table of the Last Supper, which is just crazy that they have it. And it's not labeled, which is a weird thing about Rome. They often don't label their relics. So pretty significant. The table from the Last Supper is in this church, and you don't even know what it is unless you have somebody to tell you. They have statues of the 12 apostles. They have Paul. He's in place of the other guy. Lining the main aisle. So these beautiful statues, and they're all holding what killed them, because usually martyrs are they're usually depicted holding their instrument of martyrdom. So you have like St. Bartholomew holding a knife and his skin, because he was skinned alive. You have some of them holding a crucifix or a knife or a cross. That's the same thing. I just said cross twice. Anyway, it's a beautiful church. It's just not one of my favorites. But what is my favorite is what's right across the street, and that's the Scala Santa. So these are the holy stairs, the stairs that Christ climbed when he was condemned to death. I just saw the question, how do we find your podcast? You can go to our website, thecatholictraveler.com, and it's linked there, but it's also in iTunes. You can just search for the Catholic Traveler podcast. But yeah, the Scala Santa, there's 28 marble steps that were originally in Jerusalem, but again, brought to Rome by Queen Helena. And they were placed at the Pope's private residence, and they led up to his chapel. So only he had access to these, but eventually it was opened up to the public. The steps were covered in wood, and a lot of people are like, how did they bring marble steps to Rome? Well, she was the emperor's mother, so she could do whatever she wanted. And if you think about it, it's not really that hard to do. They sliced each step, so you had 28 individual pieces of marble, and shipped them over, and then they just put them back together. And a few years ago, they renovated the steps. So they actually took the wood that now covers the steps off. And so people were able to go up the marble for the first time in 400 years. And so I got to do that 40 times. So they're very special. But I love taking people to the Scala Santa. And I love going up the Scala Santa. It's always so powerful for me. And again, I haven't been over there in forever. This was only my second time since our lockdown ended. So that's bad on my part. And when I was going up today, I realized I definitely need to get over there more often. But that's another place that I would be at sometimes twice a day, 5 or 6 days a week. And now I'm not there at all. But it was very moving to be able to go up the stairs today. And the whole family was with me, so we all got to go up together. And even though we only have Romans here now, there's no tourists, not even people outside of Rome were able to visit. There was a little crowd, so I was kind of happy about that. There were probably, 10 people maybe, which is a crowd these days. So it was nice to see people. It was nice to go up the steps. And even like in normal times, there was somebody doing it wrong. There was a lady behind us that was trying to walk up. You're supposed to go up on your knees. And there's like signs everywhere in 7 different languages that say only on your knees. So she got yelled at by the lady in charge. And then now, because things are different, they have the stairs. If you've ever been, or if you've ever seen my posts, you see the steps, the 28 steps. But now they have a divider running down the middle. And so there's 2 ways up. It's to keep people far apart. And so they don't want people to take a long time because it's not easy to pass. And so there was a lady going really slowly, and so she got yelled at too by the woman working. And this woman working, she doesn't mess around. So a couple years ago, I was there. It was with a day pilgrimage, and it was really crowded. Like a lot of times it's shoulder to shoulder going up. There's somebody on the step in front of you and somebody on the step behind you, maybe 10 people across. And there was this lady, there was a couple, and they were walking up the steps. And they were probably on like the 14th step when the lady noticed. And the lady working the I don't know, the front desk, seems weird calling it a desk, whatever it is, working like the entryway. She saw these 2 people walking up, and she first said in Italian, you know, only on your knees. People didn't turn around. Then she said in English, only on your knees. Still didn't turn around. So then she said it in like 10 other languages because she speaks a lot of languages. And then she said it in English again, and the lady turned around and said, he has bad knees. And then just turned back around, and they kept walking up. And so the lady started yelling at her, you can only go up on your knees. People on the steps are turning around. They're all being bothered by this. And finally, the lady that works there, I guess she has special permission to walk up. But she ran up the steps, grabbed the 2 people by their collars. It was like a cartoon or something, and drug them up the last few steps and then threw them off and told them to leave. And everybody was kind of silently clapping. Hi, Matt. I see Monica says, Matt says hi. Is it recommended for people with bad knees? Michelle asks. So I take people all the time, all different types of ailments, bad knees, just had knee surgery, is about to have knee surgery. I took one guy that had a broken, is it neck? Yeah, I think he broke his neck right before he came over. So he was in like one of those things, like a halo type thing. And I always tell people to kneel on the first step. So you can go up to the very first step. And some people just kneel there and say all their prayers, and then other people can kind of go around them. And I say, kneel on the first step. And if you think you can do it, keep going. And God will give you the strength you need to make it up. And I've had a few people that didn't even try. I've had a few people that did the first step and then just didn't want to go any further. But I've had the guy in the broken neck, he was able to go all the way up. I've had a 90-year-old able to go all the way up. I've had people with all different types of knee problems, and they were able to do it. And some of them even said like they felt no pain. Of course, I've had some people with like young and good knees, and they felt a lot of pain. So it just depends, I guess, on what you need. I've had people bring knee pads, and then when I explain like the sufferings that Christ went through when he was going up those stairs and knowing what was coming. So this was after he was scourged. Like he went up, they sent him down, they scourged him, then he went up again, and then he came back down to be crucified. So he went up and down these stairs. So usually when I tell people that, they like leave the knee pads behind. So it is a very powerful moment. Kathleen asks about healings. I don't know about healings. I'm sure there's been miracles attributed to the stairs. But reading a comment here. Gloria says I had to drag her up the stairs. I've had like conversions on these stairs, reconversions on these stairs, people that need to go back to confession, wanted to receive communion, people that have left the church but came back, people that were Protestant but decided they were going to be Catholic on these stairs. So all kinds of things have happened on these stairs. I'm not 100% sure about healings. I haven't heard that. I've heard of people that saw things like apparitions, people that decided they were going to give all away their money. Like they had they came into a lot of money and decided to give all that away to charitable causes. Now, if you ever come to Rome, you don't have me with you, and you're kind of on the fence about going up, it's also important to remember that you can crawl up. So you can't walk, but you can use your hands, and that makes it a lot easier on your knees. When they were exposed and you just had the marble, there were these big indentions. If you go to my website, thecatholictraveler.com, you can search for the Scala Santa, and you can find all the pictures I posted from the marble when it was exposed. And there were these indentions because for 1,000 years, people could go up the marble. And so their feet kind of wore away the marble. Marble's very soft. And wore these indentions into the flat part of the step. And it's a good place for your toes to go. And so going up the marble stairs was a lot easier than going up the walnut wood. And they replaced the wood. So they replaced it with the same wood. I didn't say that right. They did not replace the wood. They just cleaned it. They got rid of all the termites that were in it. And so you have this wood that all of these people, all of these saints have gone up, all these popes, all these people have gone up. So that's very special and powerful. So I'm glad they kept the wood, but you can actually see the marble underneath, so you can reach your hand under and touch the marble. So if you're worried about it and you're here, you can still go up the steps. I would still recommend it. Just you can use your hands, and but it was a lot easier on the marble. Like I had no trouble. I didn't have any trouble on the wood either, but no trouble on the marble. The stairs were not open when you lived here, Michelle. Were you here when they were renovating? So for a full year, they were renovating the frescoes above, like on the ceiling. And so the steps were closed. And they had there's 5 staircases. The central one, those are the holy stairs. The 2 on the side are for walking down. And then there's 2 on the far sides that are usually closed. The one on the far left is now for wheelchair access. They have an elevator thing. And then the one on the far right goes to the church. But they opened up the one on the far right when the central ones were closed. And so they dedicated those as the holy steps. So they weren't the same stairs, but you got the same graces and indulgence for going up there. But yeah, usually they're open. Looking at some comments here. So yeah, we went up the Scala Santa. And then at the top is what's called the Holiest of Holies. And that's a chapel that you have to pay to get in there. So it's just €3. It's very much worth it. But that was the Pope's private chapel. And it was called the Holiest of Holies because it contained all the relics. So pretty much all the relics that are around Rome now that were like from back in the 400s, 500s, 600s were in that chapel. And then now they've been distributed to churches around the city. They still have some of them in there. They have a big chunk of the Last Supper table, but it's just a very special chapel. When you get to the top of the stairs, you can actually see inside, but it's nice to be able to go in there. If you pay to go in, you have, I think it's 15 or 20 minutes, and they close the door behind you, so it's just pretty much you in that chapel. And there is an altar in there. I don't know if you can have Mass in there or not, but that's something that I would like to do the next time I have a group, is try about that. Looking at a couple of comments here, make sure I don't miss anything. Getting off subject here, but did I hear the Pope is going to step down after Christmas? I've heard that every year for the last, I think, 3 years. That's been a rumor. So I wouldn't believe that. But yeah, it's been a rumor every year for the last 3 years or so. Because he did say at one point that Benedict he made it okay to retire, step down from being Pope, and that he would probably do that at some point after maybe 5 years. And so when 5 years hit, everybody's like, remember, he said he was going to do it after 5 years. So yeah, I wouldn't listen to that. He's making plans for next year, some pretty big trips to Iraq and some other places. So I would not count on him stepping down after Christmas. So after the Scala Santa, let me see, make sure I didn't miss any questions. Amy thought it was harder on the marble, probably because you weren't doing it right. So when they first opened, or maybe you were, maybe it was just harder on your knees. When they first opened it, I was going up the marble the same way that I would go up the wood. And that is, like if this is the top of the steps, I would put my legs here and my feet would hang off. Does that make sense? Like I would kneel there and then my feet would hang off. And so when they opened the marble steps, I did that the same way. That hurt. Like people were in tears doing it that way. But what I realized kind of by accident, because there was somebody in front of me and I got bumped back at one point, was that if you put your knees here, like on just the very edge of the step, and then your feet into the ridges on the step below, it just put a little bit of, I guess it put your weight on your knee, like below your kneecap, but I didn't think it hurt. I'm sure it did for some people maybe, but I thought it was a lot better than the wood. So anyway, you're never going to get to experience the marble because you're probably never going to uncover it again. So it really doesn't matter. If you're just joining, Tipsy Tuesday today is from my apartment. So that's my Christmas tree. I talked about the Christmas tree a couple weeks ago. Here they sell live Christmas trees. And so we actually had to buy a pot to put it in. Or no, they gave us the pot. We had to buy the thing to catch the water. Yeah, so that's my Christmas tree. We're in my living room. You can see behind me, that's one of my kids' desks. So we do the homeschooling in here. We eat in here. We watch TV in here. Our couch is in here. I'm not going to give you the tour of the living room. Am I home alone, Gloria? No, the kids are doing whatever it is they do. And Christina's hanging out in the kitchen. I cooked, and she's watching what I cooked to make sure it's good. And we'll eat after this. Michelle, do I take small groups? So my pilgrimage groups that are like week-long, 10-day trips, those are, I usually max them out at 26 people, but some of them are 18 people. So it's a lot smaller than most pilgrimage groups. But then I also do day pilgrimages around Rome, and so those are just private. So sometimes it's a couple, sometimes it's 3 or 4 people. Usually no more than 6 to 7 people for those, but it's all private. So I don't put people together. So like if there were 2 couples that didn't know each other, they would do separate tours. I just do private. That way it's custom tailored to the groups. And so on my website, you can see the day tours I have listed. So there's 3 kind of like base models, I guess. But I have a lot of people that come back to Rome and they want to do something different, or they want to see a specific saint, and so I'll customize it for them. And some of them include private mass, or we go to confession, things like that. So yeah, they're tailored to the people. So after the Scala Santa, we went to St. Mary Major. I've been there quite a few times since the quarantine lifted. It's really close to the Scala Santa and Santa Croce. I don't know why I didn't go just a little further to see 2 of my favorite places in Rome. But St. Mary Major, that was, I think, the first place I went after our for real quarantine. Before it was like okay to do a lot of things. But the first day they said that we could go further than 200 meters from home. I went to St. Mary Major. Masses still weren't allowed then. But St. Mary Major was they continued their regular mass schedule, but they were considered private. So if you were there, they would close the door and they didn't kick you out. So I was able to go to mass there for the first time post-quarantine. I was able to go to confession there, even though that wasn't really going on yet publicly. Like you could make appointments for confession. And they were having adoration. Gloria, oh, your sister says hi. Hi to your sister, Gloria. So yeah, I went to St. Mary Major quite a few times after the quarantine. I went to Santa Prassede. I took my patrons there on a walk. I did one day tour. I've only had one day tour since March, and it was a priest friend who was kind of the pastor of Santo Spirito, the English Mass in Rome, and he knew that he was being sent back to New York. So a lot of American priests are sent here to work in some of the congregations in the Vatican. And so he was sent here. I think he worked in, I don't remember, New Evangelization maybe? I don't remember. But he was here for 5 years. He served his time. And then he was being sent back to New York, but it wasn't public yet. But he wanted to see Rome he wanted to take a bunch of tours. And so he had me take him to some of the churches. So Erica comments on the orange chair. Thank you. Yeah, so that was my one day tour. So I was there for that. I took him to St. Mary Major. And yeah, so I've been there a few times, but it's a favorite of mine. So it was always nice. Oh, and another thing about St. Mary Major, I didn't realize this, but during the full quarantine, they were doing benedictions over the city every day. So they would have adoration, and it was really just for the community there because the public couldn't go out. Or I guess if you lived around the neighborhood, you could go. But they would have adoration, then they would process to the front of the church, go outside, do a little benediction to that side of Rome. Then they would process through the church to the back door, and there's another little piazza on the back, and they would do a benediction to that side of Rome. And so I thought that was really nice to know that was going on throughout our quarantine. And so I was able to be a part of that a few times after quarantine. I don't know if they still do it. We weren't there at 12 o'clock, so I don't know. But in St. Mary Major today, nobody there because that's how it is. But it was really nice to be there again, to visit the icon of Our Lady of Protectress of Rome. So that's an icon that's attributed to St. Luke. And it's said that he painted this icon of Mary. You can look it up. It's Salus Populi Romani. Or you can just look up Marian icon in St. Mary Major. Or I've written about it on my website. Or posted about it on Instagram and Facebook. Anyway, if you've ever seen The Passion of Christ, there's a scene in the movie. I am drinking bourbon. This is Bullet bourbon. Christmas present. So yeah, if you watch The Passion of Christ, there's a scene in the movie where Jesus is in Joseph's studio and he's making a table, which is tall. And Mary comes in, she's like, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm building a table." And I don't remember the exact wording, but he's saying like, he thinks it's going to catch on. People are going to want to sit high up at a table. And she's like, "Nobody's going to do that." So that was Mel Gibson's reference to this table top that's in St. Mary Major. I just kind of messed up the whole spiel there. The icon, I got it backwards. I'm out of practice on talking about St. Mary Major. Okay, so the icon, Salus Populi Romani, is painted on a table top that Jesus made in Joseph's studio. And so the icon you see, it's about 5 feet tall. It looks a lot smaller because you're so far away. But if you could imagine, they took the table that Jesus built and they just flipped it up broke the legs off, and now it's displayed. But on the front of that table is an image of Mary holding baby Jesus. And so it's said that that image was painted by St. Luke while he was visiting Mary when she was living with John in Ephesus. And so it's I guess, an accurate depiction of what she would have looked like in real life. And so, yeah, Monica says it doesn't look that tall. It doesn't look tall at all. But you can actually find pictures of when they've taken it out. And it's been at the Vatican during the blessing the Holy Father did during the quarantine. Remember, he was outside, it was raining. They had the icon outside there. So they brought it from St. Mary Major. So you can see how big it is. It's around 5 feet tall. I got sidetracked. The icon painted by St. Luke. Oh, so if you look at it now, it's all gold. Mary has the halo. There's some jewels in it. Baby Jesus has the halo. So it would have looked nothing like that when St. Luke painted it, because they didn't paint with gold and they wouldn't have depicted saints with halos. So it's been touched up a lot over the years. And a few years ago, it was actually taken to the Vatican Restoration Labs, and they were able to clear off some of the paint that had gone on to it over the centuries. And a funny story about that is, in the chapel, nobody knew it was in the Restoration Labs. I knew, but it wasn't like public knowledge. And so the one in the chapel was actually a recreation. And the Holy Father, every time he leaves Rome or returns to Rome on a trip, he would always go by St. Mary Major and pray in front of this icon. And he would ask Mary to watch over Rome while he was away. Or when he came back, he would thank her for the blessings received on that journey. And even when the fake one was there, he would still come to the chapel to pray there. So maybe he didn't know that was a replica. I don't know. I'm sure he knew, right? He would have known. But they actually have a chair in that chapel that's his own private chair and a kneeler. So when he comes there, they just bring it out. It's like off to the side. So I always tell people about it, and they go over and touch the kneeler in the chair. Anyway, so it was great to see that again, because I love that icon. And I don't know, today was just a great day going out. And then the St. Mary Major, its nickname is the Bethlehem of the West, or the Bethlehem of Rome, because below the main altar, they have the relics of the Holy Manger. And so they have pieces of wood that came from the manger. So they say that the manger would have been like a limestone trough, and that's where Jesus would have been placed. But then below the trough were pieces of wood in the shape of an X that held it in place. And so that wood is now in St. Mary Major. And so that was a gift to the first Palestinian Pope, Pope Theodore. And we talked about this kind of in detail in our podcast last week. And again, like the one that we did on St. Mary Major. You have a lot of podcasts to listen to if you haven't listened to them, to hear more details about this. But anyway, Christmas Mass is a big deal at St. Mary Major because they have the relics of the manger. But for the last few months, when I've gone there since the quarantine, that chapel has been closed. So it's like in a little crypt below the main altar. So you can look down in to the crypt and still see the manger. You can see the altar, but you couldn't go down there. But now it's open again, maybe just for Christmas, I don't know. But I was able to go down and we could venerate the actual, Pat asked, where's the trough? I don't know. They have something in Jerusalem in the Church of the Nativity, but I don't know where actually the limestone portion is. If Shafiq's still watching, he might know, and he could mention it. That's my guide in the Holy Land. But yeah, so we were able to get right up to the relics again. So again, that was a very special moment for me to be able to be back there and see that, especially during Christmas, because today is what, the 5th day of Christmas? I know Some of you have already gotten rid of your tree. I've seen on Instagram and Facebook, people are already getting rid of their tree. But today is only day 5 of Christmas. So you should still be listening to Christmas music. And your wise men should be getting closer to the nativity now. Anyway, it was nice to be there to see the relics. And then, this was awesome. In the Sistine Chapel, so not the Sistine Chapel, but the Sistine Chapel in St. Mary Major, which was built by Sixtus V. That's how we get Sistine, is from Pope Sixtus. That's where we get Sistine. So Sixtus IV built the famous Sistine Chapel with Michelangelo decorating it. Sixtus V built the chapel in St. Mary Major. So the relics of the manger came to Rome, and they placed it under the altar, but then it was moved to this other special chapel, which also contained the body of St. Jerome. He's the one that translated the Bible into the Vulgate language, the vulgar language of the people. He lived in Bethlehem, and you can actually visit the cave there. And he, Merry Christmas, Annie. He was brought to Rome, placed in St. Mary Major. He's still buried somewhere in there, but they don't really know where the tomb is now. Some say maybe in the main altar. Some say he may still be in the Sistine Chapel, but it's unmarked. And that's because in the Middle Ages, people kept coming to Rome to steal things because there was really no one here to protect Rome. And it was a big deal to have relics. And so you could come to Rome and steal the body of a popular saint and then take it to your little town somewhere in Italy or France or something, and that would boost your tourism and kind of put you on the map. And so people kept trying to steal St. Jerome, and the church got fed up with it, dug him up, and moved him. And so that's why we don't know where he is, but they say he's still in St. Mary Major. But anyway, in the Sistine Chapel, that was built by Sixtus V, and also has the body of Sixtus V, and has the body of Pius V, our first Dominican Pope, and the first Pope to wear the white as his everyday wear. They're both in there. And Pius V is actually on display. You can see his body. But in this chapel now, they have... So it's weird to call it a chapel because it's bigger than most churches in America. So in St. Mary Major, you have a bunch of side chapels, but you have 2 big ones. You have the Borghese Chapel, which is where that icon is that I was just explaining. And in there, they have 2 additional chapels. And then in the Sistine Chapel, they have 2 additional chapels on the side. Plus, they have an underground chapel. And then, I don't know if you saw the Pope on Immaculate Conception. He went to St. Mary Major and he celebrated Mass in this chapel that's below the Sistine Chapel. So in the Sistine Chapel, you have the 2 side chapels, a chapel below, and then around the back are a bunch of tombs. I think there's another chapel on the back side as well. But anyway, in the Sistine Chapel, there is a side chapel called the Chapel of St. Jerome. So that's not where we think his body is, but they have some paintings from the life of Jerome. But they also now have the Gloria is drinking Sambuca. Yeah. I should do, maybe next week I'll do Sambuca from home. So again, I'm drinking whiskey, bourbon, from home for Tipsy Tuesday. It's almost gone. In the Chapel of St. Jerome, very special, they have what is thought to be the first artistic depiction of the Nativity from, I think, 1297. So you may recall, like, St. Francis kind of came up with the idea of Nativity. He had the living Nativity. So there were depictions of the Nativity, but this was the first time it was like made. And so I'll say the name wrong just because I'm drinking Arnolfo. Somebody will post it here. But he made it out of stone, maybe marble. It's some kind of stone. But that was made for St. Mary Major. Yeah, Joni says, am I summarizing our podcast? I am. Really, I'm summarizing my day. And this is last week's podcast anyway, so hopefully people have listened to it. I'm just summarizing my day. And because I saw it, the Nativity. Arnolfo di Cambio, that's the artist, 1297. He made the Nativity. But it was made for St. Mary Major. It was in the Sistine Chapel around the relics of the manger. Then they moved the manger back to below the main altar. The Nativity they put in the Museum of St. Mary Major, which nobody knows about, because the Nativity is like, you go into the church, you go into the back where the sacristy is, then you follow the signs to the gift shop, then you go outside, not the exit, but like a side exit of the church where the bathrooms are, which also aren't advertised. So nobody goes to the Museum of St. Mary Major, but that's where they had the Nativity, this ancient Nativity. And then a few years ago, they moved it into the upper floor, which was kind of smart, actually. They moved it to the upper floor of the church. And so when you go to St. Mary Major, you would pass these people who would try to sell you a ticket to go upstairs. And when you go upstairs, it's actually really nice up there. You're walking on the ceiling of the church, which once you're in the church and you see how high the ceiling is, it's maybe a little bit freaky to know you're that high up. But up there's a staircase by Bernini. Bernini is actually buried in the church as well. And then there was the ancient Nativity on display. But now it's down in the church. And so I was able to see that today during Christmas. And they haven't really said like if that's a temporary position for the Nativity or if it's going to be permanent. I really hope it's permanent, because that way everybody can see it without paying. Because a lot of people that come to the church, if you have somebody stop you at the entrance and say, hey, do you want to go upstairs, pay €5 or whatever, most people aren't going to do that. They're just going to go into the church. So hopefully they leave it there. And then we came home. And I wasn't even planning to talk about my day, and now I spent an hour talking about my day. Probably because it was so nice to be out on such a beautiful day and to see all these things. So the relics of the Passion, the Scala Santa, the cappuccino in a styrofoam cup, the Cathedral of Rome, St. Mary Major. It was a good day. And then, after I got home, Christina went grocery shopping because I was cooking, so she had to get some stuff. And I did another podcast with Joni. That's for Thursday. So our podcasts are always on Thursday, but we recorded today. So you should subscribe. It's on iTunes. It's on all the places that podcasts are. But you can get to it from my website, catholictraveler.com. But we recorded Thursday's episode today. It's going to be about the apostles. It's good. We talk about the apostles that are buried here in Rome, and we talk about Chinese food. And I'm not quite sure how we got there. So you have to listen to find out. Anyway, we're at just about an hour here, so I am going to sign off. I think I kind of answered all of the questions as we were going. I'll check to see if I see any questions. Amanda took her tree down on Sunday because it was so dry, because you got to put it up at Christmas, right around Christmas. So, we put ours up a few weeks early too. But in Rome, a lot of people don't start decorating until Immaculate Conception at the earliest, and some even later. A few years ago, the Vatican's Christmas tree went up they did the lighting on December 19th. and then it stayed up through February. So yeah, I get that if it's dying, you have to take it down. Another comment here. So Harmony mentions that President Trump released a proclamation today praising St. Thomas Becket. That's pretty cool. Whether you like Trump or not, it's pretty cool that he acknowledged a saint. What else? Anything else? No, people are chowing, talking about bones and body parts, the relics. Yeah. So I'm gonna go eat now. Hope you enjoyed today's Tipsy Tuesday. I'll see you back here at home. Right? Yeah, we're locked down again. Red day again for Saturday. So I'll definitely be at home for Second Cup Saturday. Oh, if you missed last Second Cup Saturday, so did I. I forgot that it was Saturday, and I was reminded around the time that Second Cup Saturday starts. It just didn't feel like Saturday, but a few people reminded me, including my parents, as it was supposed to start. So we forgot about Second Cup Saturday last week. But I'll be back for Second Cup Saturday on Saturday. So, ciao. See you later. Thanks for watching, and Merry Christmas. So, enjoy your Christmas.